Heather here. I sit here today reeling a little bit post-breakup with a guy I've been dating for a while, trying to see if it would work. I've been through a lot, and I've been on a rebuilding journey, and it's not easy for everyone. And in a lot of ways, that man was a saint for letting me just rip around in and out of his life while I tried to heal. For that, I will always be thankful. Because there were times when I didn't know which way was up and which way was down anymore. And I had torn apart relationships with my parents, and my relationship with my kids was strained because I was just out there sharing our personal life information, which couldn't have been easy because it felt like for them I was tearing things apart. But during this breakup, I'm trying to figure out what's next for me. I went from Bank of America to Commerce Bank to Hush Blackwell to Ivy Investments, and now working a little bit in the theater industry and restaurant, service and entertainment industry. And I'm just dialing in where I fit, what feels right, And so I asked him the other day when he was breaking up with me, which the breaking up just felt like the conversation we had been needing to have, that I'd been trying to get him to have for quite a while. I basically was telling him, I don't want your financial support. I want your love support. I want to be financially stable on my own, and I'm capable. I have been my whole life. I want my partner to believe in me, to see me, to understand me, to know me, and be supportive in that way. This man that I was dating, he gave me the book, The Greatest Salesman. And I asked if he'd read it, because I think this man is a terrific salesman. But I approached him specifically about being my manager and selling the vision of me, because I knew if anyone could do it, he could. He had connections in all the right places. And I watched him work in his gas industry and network with the people and have conversations, difficult conversations with his bosses and employees. And I watched his frustration as things wouldn't work quite the way that he wanted them to. That he would always keep working at it. That he would get calm, go for a walk, reflect, and keep working at it. You know, I don't really know what the answer is, but what I do know is I want the person that I love in life to truly see me and to see my value and help illuminate it so that I can equally provide to family functions, you know, where I can pay for the place where all of our kids gather and get to know each other and learn their diverse backgrounds aren't really all that different. You know, but when I asked him yesterday, what did he see me doing? Because I had been telling him what I was working on. Being an advocate and a spokesperson for mental health and healing depression, healing humans who are at a point of despair and desperation. For I had been there, I had experienced that, and I've also seen the things that cause it, and the trickle effect that it has into our health and our need for medications and a whole lot of things. That if we just go back to the basics of what's needed in a home for a home to stay happy and healthy and thriving for the adults and children, it also matters in our workplace. Because when things aren't working at home, the employees are doing things in the offices here. I think about where I was as a human when my family started falling apart. I was trying to take on too much. I was trying to get the perfect body with a fitness competition. I was trying to get the perfect degree so that I could get the perfect job. I was trying to have a foreign exchange student in my home to break up the feeling of loss as my one son left the house. And I became worried that he would never bring his grandkids around if I didn't make changes to my house. To a home where he had two younger brothers who weren't that kind to him or open to his cool factor of liking books and video games. I was stressed at home. And counselors weren't helping because my husband didn't seem to really care about the counseling. He didn't really want anything to change because everything was exactly how he wanted it. We were racing every weekend, and I mean, why would he want to tear that apart? But I was stressed because my oldest child had moved out, and I knew he was in the next stage of life. And eventually he would have kids, and I would want to be part of their lives. And I had reconnected with a man from high school. And the idea of him was great. You know, he told me all the right things, but when I would think they were sweet things, come to find out they were just lyrics from some song. And they weren't his own words, they were someone else's words. And when I would come to visit, he would just want to kind of lay around the living room and watch TV and order pizza. And I don't know, while that sounds appealing every once in a while, I imagined a busier, more successful life. And he didn't seem to care as much about success. And I always thought he could make more money than what he made. But he didn't seem interested in wanting to try. At least my husband had wanted to try something and got into the elevator industry and, you know, made a fair wage. But I was being forced to pull this apart. If I ever wanted the chance for all three of my children to have a home in which they could bring their children back to, where their children felt safe and seen and wanted. In a family where we were glad you were in the room next door or down the hall. As I transitioned out of banking, I didn't feel like I had a voice anymore. I got this new manager who she would not want to listen to our ideas and want us to bulldoze forward with hers. And then we'd get to the end and she'd be like, no, I actually want you to do it the way you first suggested. Oh, that was so frustrating. And then when I left, I mean, I finally found another job willing to pay me more money, which was great. But doing something different than banking, and I loved banking. I felt proud in banking. But when I left there, I told them about this manager and how her practices were really running other people off. And they didn't really want to hear the constructive feedback. I believe that feedback that I gave that day during the exit interview has actually kept me from ever getting a job there again. And I think I could be really valuable. I was going through personal transition in my home. And I spiraled for a little bit. I knew I needed to grow, but I didn't know how. I know they saw my value when I worked there because they hired private coaches for me. So I wish I could just figure out, was it that candid of feedback about something I didn't like, able to erase everything that I loved about the company and the organization and the suggestions that I had based on what I saw? I believe that company has some really solid practices for developing leaders. And they taught me a lot about myself as a leader. And thoughts, they taught me things that I've come back to as I've rinsed and repeated myself in and out of other companies. Making sure we're giving and getting the feedback that we truly need. To be a valuable employee. I went through a medical crisis, for no doubt. I have really had to come to terms with some of the things that I did that I'm not proud of. I spent a lot of time walking with God and questioning everything about myself. And he's helped me to rebuild the story of this tenacious girl that's always just been out here trying to build her family. Trying to make it and make it big in a way that she can travel and provide experience and lessons and learning how to fly with whatever it is that's special about you. You know, I asked him yesterday when we were breaking up what he saw me doing. Because, you know, I've been trying to work on all these different things for my business, growing and building my business, and what was going to be my income flow going forward to survive on, to be able to pay my rent, to be able to buy a house, to be able to buy groceries, you know, just the everyday things. What was it going to be for me? And, you know, here I was building my business, and it seemed like he just didn't even want to look at it. And so he kept telling me feelings are hard to sell. I don't know what to tell you, but feelings are hard to sell. Well, I get that. For him, but not for me. Because I understand the energy behind the feelings and how it does the pivot. But I asked him, so what is it that you see me doing? He said, I think you could be a great waitress. A waitress. And hey, I'm not bashing waitresses. I'm absolutely not. In fact, I love to work. I enjoy it. I enjoy it. Where the laughter comes from for me is this place of, I'm a 46-year-old woman who has worked in incredibly large companies that have a presence, in some cases, around the world. And something happened, and suddenly you think this person is only good enough to hand out food at a restaurant and take money. Somehow, over 25 years of career experience is considered invaluable. That's what it felt like. So while I thought about what he had to say, and I thought, you know, I could do that. I could be a waitress. But if I were a waitress, I would want to talk to the people coming in about the data that we collect on them, why we collect on them, and how we might be able to help them with the data that we have on them. Not just collecting them for what? So we can flex our muscles when the right kind of person walks in the door? Is that what we're doing the research for? I hope not. I hope we're using the data in a way that can serve our customers. So I was offended, really, when he said I should be a waitress. But it's not because I don't think that would be a beautiful job for me. It's because I don't like that job the way it is, the way I see it right now. The way it's being done right now. I've worked now as a waitress in a winery and in a restaurant. I know the service that we're providing and the data that we're collecting. And I think it shows that we're collecting data in every kind of business, and it's having impacts on us. It's directly impacting us in ways that we maybe didn't realize when we were capturing it at first. You know, I think back to every job I'd lost. And it always happened at a time when I was illuminating something that was a bit sketchy or it needed evolution. And then I was able to see that it always coincided with a period or time in my family when my family needed something different of me as well. And so I started to trust that God was putting things together and taking things apart exactly the way that He needed to for you. So I guess I'm sitting here today a bit humbled. I'm trying not to be in a sad state from ending a relationship that had spanned many, many years. I guess my trial run post-divorce. Where we had challenges when we got our kids together, you know. One thing that was always hard for me was when I broke my family apart. I think my youngest son took it the hardest because he felt like it was his sport that I was running from. And after I left, he struggled for a little while, and then he set out to do whatever it took to keep on living his dreams. Move from skateboarding, racing, to mountain biking, traveling from place to place, living in a car at times or in a van. And I carried a lot of guilt for that. Because it was something that I had once, as his mom, provided the bank for, the funding for. And suddenly I stopped. And he just had to figure it out. And I worried about him staying warm and having food to eat. So the first time that son met my boyfriend at the time's son, one of his sons, they didn't know any of that about him. And I don't know, I guess I hoped that my boyfriend would have given them a heads up a little bit about the reason for the visit, and that I was going there to see my son and to give him a place to sleep for a week. Because he'd been living in this van or car for a while. Well, I wanted to have fun with all of them. And have Parker be able to show me around with where he's been living and the things that he's been doing. But it was complicated. It felt like I offended Glenn's kids by putting them on the cot in the living room so they went and got their own place. And then I was a pain because they couldn't take the car everywhere they wanted to go because I wanted it or needed it for a couple of things. And anyways, it just, the first trying to collide of his kids and mine didn't go as wonderfully as I would have liked. What's interesting is that son of his and my oldest son are going through the exact same things right now. And I think they would get along great. But anyways, just some of the things that I guess 40-something-year-old with adult kids and now grandkids deals with in life, in dating. You want to be able to provide for yourself and for your own family, because for some other man to just come in and take on a woman and 3 adult children with all these grandkids coming in, I mean, come on. That's a lot, right? So this woman just wants to be able to provide for herself and her children and have a guy that wants to do all this stuff with her, you know? So I am looking at my 25 years of experience and polishing it in the most profound way I possibly can to make the most income I possibly can, because I have 3 children and 3 basically grandchildren now, with that number going to continue to climb. That's not some other man's responsibility. It's mine. I birthed these humans. I want to be able to take care of myself, but also be the pillar, the grandmother that started this legacy. And I was so bothered when the man I had been seeing saw me as a waitress. I thought, how can I afford this legacy that I started if I'm a waitress who has to share her tips? Doesn't seem like a fair wage. I've got more ideas in my head than that. More knowledge, more value. I've worked with executives at companies that have had a massive focus on growth and mergers and acquisitions and data analytics. And I can be a waitress. I should be one of the highest paid waitresses out there. Come to me, talk to me about what you need, and I will find the next customer that has what you need. I'll connect you. Waitress Heather. Come have dinner and chat. I'll talk to you about what you're eating, how you're treating the woman you come in on a date with. I'll be real with you. I'll tell you like it is. If you promise to give me a healthy tip, I'll be completely honest with you. I believe in the value of positive and constructive feedback. And I believe in my value as a human to all of these organizations. For I've learned very personal issues, I have I've learned a lot. I have learned a lot. I have explored medical, health needs from every angle, from what doctors say, what friends say, what the internet says, and what I just downright trust is true based on my experience and my faith in what's been happening to me. believe I'm right where I'm meant to be. Okay, well, I'm not sure if I'm ready to go cry some more that he thought I should be a waitress. Or work some more figuring out how I explain that it's not just the risky behaviors of men and the things that happen to me, but also on the flip side of the coin, what happens to just a woman on the other side of the spectrum when she's going through the same things at home. You know, we're all engaging in practices that I think we could openly admit are risky. When we lose a stability at home, it's like it's the energy cycling for reform. When I think about the problems I was having in my marriage during this time, I was paying psychiatrists, counselors, doctors, prescription costs, and none of it was answering the question of what was really wrong. It was what was happening in my home, the unfairness of the things that were happening in my home. That it would never be a place where all three of my boys felt they had equal rights. Because my two youngest, that was their blood father. And my oldest, it wasn't. And that lingered under our roof like this white elephant. And I never got anywhere with the counselors or the psychiatrists or the medication. It never numbed it enough or stopped me from finally running after something different. But it turns out it's pretty hard to find a man who wants to take on a woman with 3 adult children who keeps getting laid off from her job and refuses to just surrender to that. I don't know. I've always had this since I saw my mom beaten as a small child. I've always had this belief that I needed to make an income for myself always, so no one ever had an excuse to beat up on me and think it was okay. Luckily, no man has ever hit me. I wouldn't allow it. I say that in the most loving way, is I know that if I were financially bound to someone for my only means of survival, I would have to accept that treatment. And no. We should always be able to have a conversation with words and not fists or bullets or pipes or knives. We need to talk about the things that create these risky behaviors that then build to become many explosions of energy that forces a pivot. As a woman, I need that. I need the ability to be stable and financially providing for myself, and being able to have that safe home where my grandkids can come and play when their parents, need a break or have a doctor's appointment or whatever. Where grandma can have fun and be cool and take them to show them things and whatever, right? My family is only going to get bigger. Only one of my 3 children has had children. My family will do nothing but get bigger. And I want to be able to provide in a realistic way. In a way that represents the hard work that I've done over the years, all the training and college and certifications and everything I've done to polish myself so that I am valuable enough, intelligent enough, wise enough with a diverse set of skill sets to have that rad grandma pad that I imagine, full of incoming income in ways that I can give back to my communities, to the companies I once cherished and loved. I can do that. I know I can. So while it hurts, while I sit here and figure out what does my podcast look like, is my family mad that I'm sharing everything, blah, 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 all the stuff. I'm out here just really trying to make it as a woman, as a single woman who wants a rad grandpa to marry her. But a rad grandpa that doesn't expect to pay all the bills, but a rad grandpa that sees my potential to pay the bills. And it works alongside me, it encourages me. Watches me just learn how to rake money in so that it can be cycled out into all these beautiful initiatives, like helping depressed people heal and helping the homeless find jobs and helping leaders lead in a way that engages their employees and doesn't isolate them and throw muzzle on them within the first week. So that, how do you start your family bank account? And that's like, what's the income that's going to come in for your family? That's what it is to build business. You start with, what is your income going to be as a family? My family right now might look to some people like a single family female, but I'm really a single family female with 3 adult sons, so 3 detached families that are part of my lineage that will continue to grow. So I have to find a stability in creating the hub for that. For my next 20 years, 40 years, 60 years, 80 years. I mean, I don't know how many years I'm gonna live. But right now I'm not even 50. So let's just say I live 50 more years, nearing 100. I did all of this in under 50 years. What can I do in 100? Really? When you think about it like that, it's hard to cry on the couch anymore. You know? Shit happens and you have to move on. More shit happens and you have to move on. You learn some difficult things and decide to take certain things out of your life. Toxins that you tried along the way that didn't work so well. You found your favorite, everything from stationaries to pen types to your favorite drinks to your favorite foods to your favorite pastimes. By the time you're almost 50 or 50, you have a pretty damn good idea of what your likes are. And I've explored a lot. And so I have fine, refined tastes for quality things. And I believe I earned that. I know I earned that. I know I earned that. Even my mistakes sent me on this journey of medical discovery that was so unexpected. I mean, I got off all that medication. That was, wow, impressive. And when I traced it all back to when I started it, I realized it started with my family not meeting the needs that my family had. So I saw where I broke, and when I turned to medication, and by turning to medication, what it led to, it was just this chain of events that would take me years to unwind. But it was a beautiful walk for peace that I went on. If I was ready to leave this world, I wanted to be at peace with my decision. And when I sat down with God, I said, you know, God, I did give it everything I had. I left no stone unturned. And I'm prepared for those questions of, why'd you do this? Or what about this? Or did you do anything about this feeling that had been nagging you forever? And I feel pretty good today at my age, being able to say that I am embraced fully into the act of just life. And that we're building our story, and that I don't know how the next chapter is going to write itself. I really don't know. But I know that it will, or I'll be 6 feet under. Because it did every time. I mean, when I left Bank of America, I spent 6 months crying on the couch before I went to work in Leavenworth for Commerce Bank. And the drive was kind of brutal on 2-lane highways, and it was in a community where there was a prison, and the hiring pool of candidates was limited. And as a bank, you have to have bonded employees. And anyways, I learned a lot there, doing market research and analysis on the community, and facing the difficulties of trying to find quality employees to work there. And I learned a lot there. And after a year, I only had to hang on for a year to working in this kind of small town community that really wasn't my thing. Until I got offered a job facilitating training classes within the organization for all the managers and all the tellers and all of the personal bankers that were hired, and for the CEOs and CFOs on presentation skills, and it was a really cool opportunity. So I switched, and a year after I started for Commerce, I started doing research on generational differences and things that were causing employee conflict, and how we could work better together, how the boomers were retiring out and their wisdom was valuable, and how to be able to kind of collide the wisdom of our boomers with the new vision of our Xers and millennials that were the future leaders. I really learned a lot about William Marston's work as a psychologist, and yeah, it made me passionate. I really liked learning about it. I realized maybe I wasn't so good communicating myself. Maybe I had a bit of a bark. There was maybe a fierce leader at that point. When I saw things and wholeheartedly believed in them, I wanted people to listen. And the one person that really used positive psychology like I believed in, she was my manager, and she took an individual contributor role so that she could start being more for her family and what her family needs were in traveling. And the transition to the new style of boss, that was tough for me. And then I got into the next company, and it was like, they didn't want you to be, just do as you were told kind of thing. They didn't really want ideas or suggestions for improvement. I think I started to give up here. I lost hope for a while. You know, I was finally taking the steps of, I needed to leave my husband. Exploring relationships with other potential men who had kids of various ages. Who had also been in relationships and failed or lost, or were like me in the kind of still the grittiness of, am I going to fully let go or keep limping along here? When I think of my worst point, my destruction, I was there. I lost control of everything. I wasn't proud of my own behaviors anymore. I wasn't. I didn't have a voice. You know, here I was training sexual harassment classes and not even really putting two together, that while I was training on it, it was truly happening to me. And it was invisible. Yet, I was behaving as a single female at that time. My body must have been giving off that energy, because while I didn't believe in crossing the boundaries with work employees and relationships, well, I didn't believe in that. I was exploring relationships outside of my marriage, and that begins to happen outside of your home because your marriage is in your home. So it happens in your workplaces, during your work travel. So at that place, I experienced both sides of it. What it's like for the woman who is single and exuding an available energy, whether she realizes it or not. And the complications, if we don't have clear boundaries of our office spaces and office relationships. My mastery has been on health and home, and being able to locate your impeccable value based on the experiences that you've had in your life, the things that were put in place of you, for you to crumble on, for you to succeed in, for you to walk around in, all for you, to gift you everything you could possibly want and more. Your spirit is your leader, and it is cheering you on to never, ever, ever give up. Your story will continue writing itself. 30 years ago, when I was giving birth to my son, I wasn't thinking about the challenges I would have come time for grandma season. In just 30 years, a lot of things have happened. I've got at least that many left. So, faith, maybe people laugh at me for that, but I see it in the science. When you truly reflect on life and what it means to be human, and you see that our bodies are actually capable of doing this for us, you can relax a little and settle into, okay, I'm just meant to do stuff each and every day. Know that if I were to talk to God, I wouldn't be disappointing him. And let life unfold. Peace, love, and happiness always. Heather here.